All right, what is going on? I am back. I have felt very under the weather for the last few days. My entire house, including my kids, have been sick, but I got to get back talking about the weather. So today we're going to go over a bunch of things. Obviously, I haven't put out a video in a few days. I do plan on being back every single day now. Videos in the morning, live streaming. I want to get into the snowfall expectations over the next 10 days. What January looks like temperature-wise. It's starting to look like a little bit warmer of a January up front. Still looking cold on the back end of January, though. We're going to talk about the stratospheric polar vortex. Maybe a little bit of a stretch, 15th through the 20th of January, which could actually lead to a pretty cold beginning of February. We're just going to take a look at this. I haven't talked about the stratospheric polar vortex in a little bit, and our teleconnections are out of control. The European Weeklies thinks it's going to be super hot. We're going to have ridging in the east, and the GFS Extended and European Ensemble completely disagree. So we have a ton to talk about. It is January 3rd, 2026. Let's get into the weather updates. First off, as I always like to do, let's take a look at the live radar. We do have some snow falling up here through portions of inner New England, Michigan. Obviously, you can see southern Ontario here. Some of this is going to move into northeastern Ohio, northwestern PA. Not extremely heavy snow for most, but there is some cold air with this snow, so some more lake effect snow is possible. You can see what's happening down here in Florida. I was just watching the Tampa Bay Panthers game. It was downpouring almost the whole game. We've got some bad storms moving through there, really from North Florida, making their way down through central Florida currently. And then you can see what's also happening out west. A lot of precipitation falling through Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Utah, Idaho. This is, of course, snow for the high elevations, but it's not cold enough right now for the low elevations. This is still low elevation rainfall. All right, so let's take a look at the next 7 to 10 days on the GFS. I'll always take a look at the end of the run too, although once you get out towards 10 to 14 days. You really can't trust the models too much. Like I said, we've got some cold air moving it out east. You can see this above the 540 line. Storm system moving off the coast here. So this could pick up a little bit more lake effect snow up there. Some ridging still happening out west. That's why a lot of this precipitation is low elevation rain, staying snow in the higher elevations. But this is good for you out west. Obviously, a lot of you have been in quite a drought this winter so far. Now, as we move into early this week, we're going to start to get a warm up across the plains, pushing out east, as you can see here. But a little bit of a trough is settling in out west. And we have another storm system trying to move into the west as well. So a little bit dry as we get into early next week. And you can see all of that snowfall moving in to the Pacific Northwest as we get into Tuesday, as we get into Wednesday. And this is cooler air moving in here. So I do think it's possible to get a little bit of low elevation snow. Again, when you have that polar jet collapsing, it's possible to get cold enough out there. Here we go. We get some more moisture moving into the desert Southwest here. This does look to move into Arizona, Colorado, Utah. You can see more snow for the Rockies out here, Central Rockies, and some good snow for the New Mexico mountains. I know you guys are also running a little bit behind this year. This is as we're getting into Thursday and Friday. This is a pretty interesting time frame this week, okay? So we're pushing out about 6 days here. We start to get our polar jet sinking pretty far to the south here. We have a storm system potentially moving in off the Pacific with some warm, moist air also moving in off the Gulf. What happens here? Models don't fully agree. I'll say this, the globals agree on this collapse of cold air. They agree on this storm system. But again, where the precipitation is going to be falling, how much snow, how much rain, tough to tell. We're talking about 120 plus hours, 110 plus hours. But on the latest GFS, getting into Thursday evening, getting into Friday morning, you start to get this trough beginning to tilt. You get a lot of cold air on the back end, potentially major snowstorm through the plains, through portions of the Midwest. The European has this snowstorm actually a little bit farther to the north, threatening potentially Omaha, Des Moines, Minneapolis. So we'll have to see, does it go this far south, getting into Friday and then pushing through Saturday? Here we go, a lot of snow falling through portions of Chicago, getting into central Indiana. Maybe you get a little bit in Indianapolis, up through Michigan. This could be a good swath of 6 inches to a foot of snow. This is also going to come with some windier conditions. You can see as our low pressure is deepening, our isobars are getting closer, and this would potentially promote some severe weather through Dixie Alley and then pushing out towards the southeast and the eastern coast. Right behind this is as we're getting into Saturday. A lot of very, very cold air is sinking in here. This again would likely trigger some more lake effect snow just because of all that cold air moving over the lake waters. Interesting time frame here as well. This trough begins to dig, and on some models you can see this frontal boundary trying to stall. I think there'd be a small opportunity here to get a nor'easter type setup. You can see right here on the GFS, you have a storm system trying to move up the coast here and link in with this cold air right after that first system moves out. So let's watch this time frame, and I've been talking about this time frame for a while, but 11th through the 13th right now on the GFS. Now, as you can see here, I don't want to get too far past this. We're at about 9-10 days out now. You can see here pushing through the second week though, lots of warm air on the GFS out west. Just a ton of warm air out west. This would be well above average, and we still have that cold air diving into the east. You're going to want the southeast though, because the next few days, I would say the next 4 to 5 days could be pretty warm out east. Now again, as we get towards the end of the model, tough to tell what's going to happen. Again, we haven't really felt the full effect from our last sudden stratospheric warming event. I do think there's pocket of cold air up in the Arctic that still wants to collapse. And I've been talking about the opportunity here in January for some southern snow, potentially a nor'easter. This is the end of the run. Take this with the largest grain of salt you've ever seen in your life, but there it is. I mean, this is 12 inches to, this is 1 to 2 feet of snow for the entire mid-Atlantic, Northeast. Getting some snow down there in the southern plains. I believe the Euro actually tries to put a little bit of snow right through this region as well, getting some snow down into the south. So is it possible? Yes. Too far out. We'll talk about that once we get closer if we're still seeing that signal. Here's a look at the latest GFS. I'm not even going to move it out that far. Well, I'll show you this. This is what the GFS thinks if we were to have that set up. Snow for everyone out there. Everyone's happy here from DC to Baltimore, Philadelphia up to Boston. You got a foot or more of snow. End of the run. Let's just push forward here. I'd say we'll say 10 days. Here's the GFS. Again, chance for snow through the plains. Lots of big snow potentially for Michigan, inner New England, some good snow, and some good snow for the Rockies, including the central Rockies here. Now let's take a look at what the European sees. Let's go back to the 12Z, move out about 10 days. Where's the European see the opportunity for some snow? You can see right here, upper Midwest, Michigan, New England, potentially some snow out in the mid-Atlantic, and the chance for some southern snow here. Texas, northern Louisiana, Arkansas, northern Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky. Again, we also have all of that snow out west. So I will say what we're seeing on the Euro and what we're seeing on the GFS, the consistency is definitely Michigan, inner New England, and then the chance for a snowstorm somewhere, maybe across the plains or the south. All right, here is our European weeklies, 7-day temperature anomalies. Now, I will say the Euro is being very aggressive with warm air in the short to midterm, and it has a history with being too aggressive. But if we take a look at this, we're pushing all the way out now through January 12th to January 19th, all the way up until kind of that 7-day time frame. We're looking pretty warm. We get into the second half of January. Look at this big cool down. Now we're looking at January 18th to January 25th, potential 7-day temperature anomalies. And we push out towards the end of January, coldest time of the year in the northern hemisphere. We still have that very cold signal from the Euro. So even though it's being extremely aggressive with the warm air in the short term, it's also being pretty aggressive with the cold air in the long term, the medium to long term here as we get towards that 3rd to the 4th week of January. And this is what you want to see if you want a chance for southern snow. You want to see a pretty cool signal around this time of year, because that's when you get the opportunity for below freezing air to swoop up against the Gulf, potentially out here towards the Atlantic, and give you an opportunity for a nice tilted trough to put some snow down in the south. So still not a bad look from the European here. The stratospheric polar vortex is looking pretty healthy right now. So if you're hoping for this big Arctic blast, major polar takeover like we've seen through portions of this year, to be honest, I don't see anything in the short term here. As we get out towards the middle of January, we start to get a stretched polar vortex here. Now, these models do a pretty good job, even at the farther time frame here, 200 to 300 hours when it comes to the stratospheric polar vortex. I've said it before, local precipitation is really hard to forecast even 3 or 4 days out. But these bigger trends, what's happening with our troughing, what's happening with our ridging, these larger, more climatological events can be a little bit easier to predict farther out because you're not obviously forecasting for a zip code. It's for a larger area. Now we see the opportunity for our polar vortex to begin to stretch here mid-January. I think there's an opportunity it breaks here. If you get some of these higher heights pushing up in here and you break that polar vortex in half, but a stretched polar vortex, that is going to potentially set up, if we were to see this, a very cold start to February. So just a signal I wanted to share with you guys. I don't see any major stratospheric polar vortex happening right now in the short term. As we get towards the middle of January, towards the end, is it possible we get a stretched stratospheric polar vortex setting up a very cold February? It is something to watch. Obviously, a stratospheric polar vortex breakdown doesn't really bring that cold air down into the States till 2, 3, sometimes even 4 weeks later. We want to see a tropospheric polar vortex breakdown if you want that immediate cold air. All right, let's talk about our teleconnections. The European weeklies are looking crazy. This is what I'm talking about, the European weekly. In the short to long term, look at the control here. Just absolutely terrible if you're hoping for a wintry January and beginning of February. Look at the mean though, right? This is our ensembles expecting it to be somewhere near neutral. So you never really just want to stare at one control run and say, okay, well, this is going to happen. You really want to take a look at the mean, but this definitely scares you if you don't want a torch for January and early February. Luckily for us, you want to take a look at the GFS ensemble extended. We don't see that. We see pretty neutral. Maybe you get the AO going pretty positive here as you get towards the end of January, early February, but the models don't really know what's going to happen out there. You can see what our mean is doing. It's actually a little bit negative here on the GFS extended. Taking a look at our European AI, which is supposed to be moving forward better than our European. We'll see it's still a newer model. It doesn't see what the Euro sees at all. It sees this AO negative. Look at the mean, even the control through the next 3 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks of January. So that's a cold signal from the European AI. You go to the North Atlantic Oscillation, our NAO, very negative on the European AI. What's it doing on the weeklies? On the European weeklies, super positive. So honestly, I hate seeing this. I like seeing some sort of model consensus, some sort of consensus with our teleconnections so we can kind of tell the story of what's going to happen. I told everyone, I've said this a couple times, I don't know if I said it in my video or lives, that I had pretty high confidence with my forecast for December, and it ended up working pretty well. I did not have a ton of confidence with my January forecast, and this is just reminding me why we do not have a ton of model consensus. And it's worrying me because we're trying to see these models improving, right? We're starting to use AI in these models. We're getting all of these next gen models. We want to see improvements here, and tons of disagreements. To me, the second half of January looks much colder than the first half. I do think we have a chance for that southern snow nor'easter towards the back 2 weeks of January still, maybe even in the second week. There's an opportunity there, but these models are all over the place. So I'm going to continue to make videos and update you. Obviously, in the short term right now, there's some consensus. In the medium to long term, there's not a bunch, but we'll see. Sometimes after the models disagree for a while, they finally do come back into a consensus and have a pretty good outlook or forecast. Taking a look at our MJO forecast, still not doing much. You can see this. Hey, we could be pushing back into phase 7, phase 8 for the end of January, early February. This is a very cold signal, but guess what? Still not amplified. It's sitting all the way down there. If our MJO is not going to amplify, it's really not going to have any major effect on our weather. So we do want it out towards 781 if you want cold, especially in the east, storminess, but we want that MJO amplified. When it comes to severe weather, not much severe weather in the short to midterm here. You can see this is our day 1 to day 8 Storm Prediction Center outlook, although potentially some general thunderstorms, California, Idaho, Nevada, Florida, portions of Utah, obviously South Florida here, day 2. Nothing too severe though, so I wouldn't worry too much about severe weather in the short term. I will say though, if you're out west, flash flooding could be an issue. Obviously a lot of precipitation here over the next 72 hours, especially through portions of the Pacific Northwest here, out towards coastal Washington, coastal Oregon, and then the state of California here, really central to Northern California. So I would keep your alerts on out there. Flash flooding and mudslides is a possibility. I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you like this type of content, feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And if you like the video, don't forget to like the video. I will be getting back to my normal posting schedule, posting every day, live streaming every day. I typically live stream right after I post my videos so I can answer all of your weather related questions. If you want to join an awesome weather community, the link to my Discord is in the description of all of my YouTube lives and all of my YouTube videos. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video or the next live stream.